Hello everyone, this is CJ with Cycletron. Well, today I'd like to talk about Harley Davidson's Sportster model motorcycle. Have they killed it off for good? Before I get into that, I'd appreciate it if you would please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Appreciate all the support you've been providing to the channel. Well, I want to come at this from a couple of different angles. We know that Europeans, governments have been tightening their air regulations on vehicles, including motorcycles, and the Euro 5 emission standard is now in effect, and that's meant a lot of changes for various model motorcycles, including the discontinuation of the Yamaha VMAX, among other things. That means the discontinuation of the Sportster in Europe as of this year. And we know also that Harley Davidson has discontinued their street model motorcycle, the 500 and the 750. That doesn't have anything to do with emission issues, but the two are related, I believe, in terms of the future of the Sportster, and I'll just get to that in a moment. But for a lot of traditionalists, for lack of a better term, the Sportster represents, to hear some of them comment on it, the last real Harley Davidson in terms of the character of its motor and its lineage. I think it's obviously the most successful motorcycle model in history, going back to the 1957 and earlier than that with precursor models. So that's the longest running motorcycle model in history, and its current incarnation, the basic engine design since '86, and then some changes in the early 2000s, relatively small changes. So that's a really long running model history. And the Sportster, if you put aside the street models, was always thought of as the more or less entry-level model motorcycle, although I don't really see it as that. I just see it as an alternative or a smaller motorcycle for whatever suits your needs. So it would be a real blow. I know if they discontinue them altogether here in the United States, I know the last couple model years they came out with the Sportsters that include the AMF style paint job, which I thought was really neat looking. And of course you have the iron models, the 883, and then you have the 1200 Sportster. So what would this mean? What would this look like for Harley's customers if this bike's no longer offered? How would people react to that? I suspect it would be similar to what happened when Harley axed the Dynas. I guess technically they merged them into the Softail line, but really they just axed them, and then they renamed some Softail models as using the Dyna name of the models rather. So like the Fat Bob. So what would that mean if they quit selling the Sportster altogether, and why does it look like that may be the case, aside from the fact that they're no longer sold in Europe due to emission regulations? And I think with Harley's current financial situation, it shouldn't be a surprise that they're not going to invest the money that it would take to take the Sportster engine into emission compliance for European standards. And it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to make a model that can only sell in probably 49 states of the US. So I think from a financial standpoint, people shouldn't be too surprised that Harley would axe that model. There's another YouTuber that posted back in August. I happened across his channel today, a guy named Wigsley. So I want to give him credit because he's the one that discovered this, as far as I'm concerned, that Harley Davidson dropped the Sportster name from their website for their 2020 models and has it under the tab of street model motorcycles. So of course they already discontinued the 500 street, but the 750 street and its variants, and then you have all the Sportster models on that page, but they're not labeled Sportsters. So we know that Harley has since announced that they're discontinuing the 750 street models. They're probably a big part of that is they didn't sell very well, and also they were manufactured in India. And back in September, Harley Davidson announced that they were ceasing their production operations and their dealer operations, aside from their affiliation with Hero Motorcycles, to basically pull out of the Indian market with regard to new Harley Davidsons. So think back to my math days in school. If A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. So in this example, if a Sportster is a street model and a street model has been discontinued, then the Sportsters have been discontinued. So that's where it looks like this is headed. I guess it shouldn't be a surprise, but I kind of wonder if people are going to react like they did when the surprise came and just shocked everybody back in 2017 that they eliminated the Dynas. I mean, I've always liked the Sportsters. I never owned one. I never saw any issues with them, but you always kind of heard some chatter about the Sportsters that, that's a beginner bike. That's not a real Harley. That's what women ride if they want to ride a big air-cooled V-twin. And, I didn't buy into any of that, but I just thought it was kind of interesting that, stuff like that would be said. I'm wondering if the same people are going to be up in arms when they find out that the model, in all likelihood, has been discontinued, starting probably with the January announcement with the new models for 2021. So if that happens, and if they've eliminated the street models and they're not introducing the Bronx, and I guess that leaves the 1250 Pan America, and if they come out with the 1250 Custom as the smallest displacement bikes that Harley would offer. So there's quite a gap on the low to mid-size of the engine displacement in terms of Harley Davidson's model lineup. I mean, if they eliminate the Sportster, I don't think they're going to come out with some other bike, that's liquid cooled or is radically different engine and slap the Sportster name on it, just like they didn't slap the Dyna name on anything. Although they used some models that were Dynas and became Softails and still used the former model name for the former Dyna bike, if you follow me. So they didn't brazenly just kept calling them Dynas when they weren't. So I don't think Harley's going to do that, but these brand names or these model names are very valuable. Just take Ford Motor Company. I mean, they've brought the Bronco name back, and of course that vehicle doesn't really, in some ways, looks like the old style 60s Bronco, but these names are worth a lot of money in terms of branding, and it's not uncommon for big companies to essentially retire a name for a decade or more and then bring the name back and put it on a vehicle that's considerably different than its original namesake. So obviously I think, maybe it's not obvious, but I think Harley is going to do something like that at some point. I mean, those names are just valuable assets to not be used again at some point in the future. So right now I'm out cruising around on what I call my Copart Special, my 600R that I salvaged and got back on the road by replacing part of the fairing and a few other pieces, and it's a fun bike. But my son's behind me on his Vulcan 650 ABS Cafe. It's the Kawasaki. I think it is really a very similar bike to what Harley was trying to do with their 500 and 750 street models. My son, before he bought his Vulcan, had taken the MSF course at a Harley dealership, and they used the 500 street model bikes in the class, and he just didn't like the bike. The tank was really wide. It pushed his knees out to the side. There's a bunch of things he didn't like about it. He said it had a tremendous amount of engine heat and fan noise at low speed maneuvers. So he wasn't a fan at all. And you take this Vulcan, he's just been riding the wheels off of it. And it's got a real sporty engine in it, the same one they use in the 650 Ninja. And he's gotten about a 10 horsepower boost by putting kind of an obnoxious aftermarket pipe on it. But I wanted him to be heard in traffic, and he loves the sound of that bike. It's pretty loud, though. Occasionally, little kids on the sidewalk when he passes by cover their ears, so didn't intend to be that antisocial with it, but again, I wanted him to be heard clearly in traffic. So I was talking to him. He had a long interest in the Sportster, but I didn't want him starting out on something that was a 883 or bigger for a street bike. In retrospect, I think he could have handled it just fine. But I was being pretty cautious, and the 650 was plenty powerful enough. I think it comes in low. Well, it's around 60 horsepower, and it's probably pushing 70 horsepower now, and that's plenty of oomph for him, and he's careful with it. But he really likes that bike. But I asked him, once he was to step up from this bike at some point, would he consider a Sportster or what? And at this point, he's really interested in an Indian Scout. Of course, that's a liquid cooled engine, and it just is a really nice bike. He likes it a lot, but I was kind of surprised that he said that over trying to get a Sportster. But again, I think that Harley Davidson has to appeal to this younger group. And I'm not going to tell my kid he bought his bike with his own money. He's going to buy his next bike with his own money. But I'll have a say in terms of displacement and other things like that. But it'll be a ways off before he upgrades. Probably be out of the house by that time. But anyway, I just think that it shouldn't be surprising that Harley's coming out with these liquid-cooled engines. Now they've talked about that 1250 Custom. I would be really curious if that 1250 Custom comes in the 975 liquid-cooled variant of that Revolution engine. That was supposed to go into the Bronx Street Fighter, and Harley discontinued that. We don't know if and when they're going to bring it back. I wouldn't be surprised at all if instead of having a Sportster next year, you're going to have the 1250 Custom, and you might have a 975 Custom as well. So do you all think that's at all plausible? What do you think about Harley's in terms of catering to the heritage of the brand if the smallest displacement engine they offer is a liquid-cooled 1250 or 975? It leaves a big gap in the range on the low end, I'd say, and also it's price-wise, it's going to be harder for people to get into a bike if they've eliminated the Sportster, which I believe they have. So again, I'd be interested in your thoughts on the topic. Please let me know down below, and appreciate your watching. And again, please like and subscribe. Thanks very much.